Hello, amazing human. Whether you're watching or listening, if you're watching, you are in for a treat because this is probably the shabbiest edit I have done so far. Amy here wanted to do a bit of a how it started, how it's going episode. And here we are, the week before Christmas. It's episode 21, which for the Bitcoiners, 21 is a magic number. And I thought, what better way to celebrate our favourite number than reflect on how this podcast has gone as a creative endeavour of mine and how it's going, where it's going next. If you're new here, it's potentially the best one to listen to get a quick soundbite and snapshot of every episode so far to see if there's anything that jumps out at you. If you've been around for a while, if you've listened to a couple of episodes or more, thank you so much. Really appreciate the support and the downloads. If you're feeling extra generous because it's Christmas, if you want to jump on Apple and give me a rating, ideally a 5-star one, and a review, that would be amazing, because I just learned in the last 2 weeks that is very, very important if you're doing a podcast. Apple and Spotify are the most important platforms to be reviewed on. So if you have been here and got any value whatsoever from any episode, or even from this one, I'd really appreciate that. That'd be amazing. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. But I just thought I'd share a bit of a progress update, because I wanted to do that. And as someone who works online and I coach content creators, I've worked with online business owners, and I think it's really important to document your projects and document your journey. And if it helps anyone else, then we should pass that on. So 21 is the magic number. Here we are. I did a fortnightly goal, a goal of releasing a podcast fortnightly, which I've pretty much done since March, when I started with the lovely Natalie Brunel. Thank you, Natalie, if you're listening. And I didn't want to overcommit, because that's something I'm very guilty of. But I was also in a little bit of overwhelm and fear that one a week would just take over my life. And it's taken over my life anyway, because I've really enjoyed it. So that's the first lesson, is to, if you find something that really lights you up, then keep doing it. And that also kind of leads me on to how it's evolved, and the importance of just starting. All those cliches are true. Just start. You'll evolve as you go, and you'll figure it out as you go. Or as I read on Instagram recently, you're one fuck it, I'll figure it out away from a new life and things that, contribute positively to your life. So little coaching tip there. So I started this podcast with a solo episode a bit like this. The intro episode, if you want to go back and listen to that, it was about half an hour long. And I kind of had this loose idea of be you, get paid. That's my brand for coaching, or was at that point, and still is. And I wanted to do a podcast, and I wanted to incorporate Bitcoin, and I just wanted to bring everything together that I've done and showcase what's possible when people be themselves and understand money. And now the extra piece for me was adding Bitcoin to that conversation. And the tagline I came up with was freedom and happiness in a brave new world. And the reason I did that was because it just felt like, obviously, in the last few years, since 2020 and the world going a bit crazy, that so many people are lost. I was seeing it in my coaching. I was seeing it in my family and friend circles. You're obviously seeing it online, and it can lead to some really dark places when people are lost at a societal level. And so I wanted to sort of dig into why people are unhappy. And as a Clifton Strengths coach, and I read a lot of Gallup reports, the polls were showing, that this unhappiness has been on the rise for so long. And then, so that was my loose kind of skeleton idea for what I could do a podcast about. And then as I got started, I kind of thought, need to put my marketing coaching hat on here and get more specific, like who's my niche and what am I going to talk about? And I just thought I want to make sure that I'm serving people conversations and content that's relevant to me and my age group, which I'm just on the cusp of being a millennial, but anyone basically between 30 and 50 who could be going through similar things. I wanted to be having conversations about topics that were relevant to those people, and I wanted to be having them with people who were experts in that area, or content creators who had studied it. I don't believe in needing a certification or qualifications in a lot of things these days. And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of people in my existing network that could bring those conversations. So thus far, it's been extremely straightforward to reach out to people that I already knew, that I already networked with online, who are monetizing and have built brands and businesses around their passions, expertise, knowledge, interests, and life experience, which to me is most important. If they've got a result in that thing, then they are qualified to teach it. So I hope that in amongst the 20-ish conversations that I've had, it'd be 20, that 19 conversations, one with myself, 20 episodes so far, that there's been topics in there that have been helpful if you've been listening, but that's kind of broadly how it got going. And then over time, I've just realized that those are the things that I'm really quite passionate about, is talking, people talking more. The world is incredibly divided, and I fundamentally believe that it just comes down to people being willing to have more conversations, to learn to communicate with one another better, both how we talk to ourselves and the stories that go on in our heads about what we can and can't do. That's elements of my coaching coming into play. But then also just the world at large needs to get better at finding middle ground in a lot of divisive issues. So conversations and creativity were the two things that came up for me as a theme as I was talking to people and researching guests. And so now the tagline of this podcast has turned into conversations with creators. Now, that does not mean content creators. And I am a content creator by virtue of doing this podcast. It's not really ever been something I've massively focused on, which is why you see me with my hair scraped up and the glasses on the head and sweating a bit because it's hot and sweaty here in Australia at the moment. And the reality, I think, for most people who are content creators is this most of the time. They might look glam on camera, but the reality of a content creator or an online business owner is really just getting shit done in your pajamas or in, hair scraped up. So that's why I jumped out and thought I'd stick a video on to do this intro, which is longer than I had anticipated. But I also wanted to make sure it framing what I've done so far, so that if you are here and you want to hang around, what you're going to hear is a sort of 2 or 3 minutes from each episode going forward. And one thing's just become very clear is that creativity does not necessarily mean creative stuff in the traditional sense. If you hear the word creative and you say to yourself, I'm not creative, that's rubbish. Human beings are by nature creative beings. You don't see animals and other species going off and doing anything that isn't part of nature. And I often refer to this, it's, you look out the window, anything you see that's not part of Mother Nature has been created by humans. So everyone I've been talking to recently and everyone I want to talk to going forward have created something. And the importance of that to me is what it gives us. And I can say that now from doing this podcast as well. It's when you create something yourself, you feel that sense of accomplishment, and that sense of accomplishment leads to competence as you improve and you make progress. And that in itself, I think, is something that's so missing from people developing their self-esteem, up to the age of about 7. And this is stuff I've studied for coaching as well. We're very naturally self-expressed and creative and lit up by certain things. And then the lights go off and we kind of stop doing stuff that we find fun. And so I just wanted to really focus on that point now, is that creativity is just doing something that lights you up, but you've got to stay curious and keep trying things until you find the thing that does that for you. And I fundamentally believe that once you find what those things are, or what that one thing is, you can turn it into a business and you can make money from it. Now, at this point, I would say, if you are interested in understanding how you get to that point, how you monetize something that you are passionate about or that you discover you like doing, you will want to find a way to make money so that you can do more of it. Then you can potentially turn that thing as well into something that you monetize. A bit like me with this podcast. Does not make me money right now. I believe it can in the future, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I think it's so important because it will make you happier. So it's I've just dived down that happiness rabbit hole a bit more. And this is something I believe is such a contributing factor to it. It just makes people happier when they feel that they're creating and making progress with something. So if you want to check out my main partner with this podcast and a company I've been associated with for a very long time, Launch You, Wherever you're listening, in the show notes, it's the only group coaching I offer now for this kind of stuff. And I partner with them because they have curriculums on digital skills and marketing and developing a brand online that I group coach people through as well to support them through the curriculum. Check out the show notes. You'll find the intro curriculum, Modern Wealthy. And I interviewed the founder of the company and a 10-year mentor and friend, Stuart Ross, in episode 18. So go check that out. There's some extras for the listeners of that episode as well. So definitely check that out if everything I've said so far resonates or piques your curiosity. And I think at this point as well, it's where I realised the Bitcoin piece fits into the equation. So if you're a Bitcoiner listening, or even if you're not, I think what's so beautiful about Bitcoin as new money, as a new form of money, is that it totally supports the ethos of creativity and contribution. The financial system as we know it is not fair. It's very broken. I still believe that if you want to change your circumstances and make tons of money doing something, especially online, you can, and you don't have to worry about all that noise. Like the world is, in a bad place in certain ways, but you can change your circumstances and break out of it. But what I love about Bitcoin is that it actually supports the people who want to do that. And it doesn't have to be a hustle. You can hustle for something you love doing and it won't feel like a hustle. I actually don't like the word hustle. You can rent an Airbnb, a spare room out on Airbnb. You can cut your Netflix subscription. You can do all these things that are actually just more work than they probably make you in money. So just try and adopt a new thinking around money. If you're someone who believes that Bitcoin is the only solution, I think it's a fantastic solution, but you don't have to wait to get rich on Bitcoin to make plenty of money doing something that you love. So hopefully that covers all bases of what I've been talking about on this podcast. What's in store for 2024? Well, you know what? I'm not even thinking about 2024 just yet because there's a 7-year-old arriving in my life for a month tomorrow with my partner. And I'm not sure I'll be able to function much outside of just keeping him entertained and fed and clothed and myself. It's a bit overwhelming. So podcast will definitely continue in 2024. I really want to get to one a week. So I think I'm going to take a bit of a hiatus and study, get a course from someone who's done a podcast and got it to where it needs to be. So I'm going to do some research on how I can really optimize because I've totally been winging it. But that is hopefully me walking my talk in saying, just do the thing, just start the thing. And I will refer to Chris Williamson, one of the top podcasters on planet Earth right now with Modern Wisdom. He keeps quoting, I think it was Alex Hormozy, do the thing. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And reading about the thing or talking about the thing is not doing the thing. So whatever it is that you're looking for your thing, you've got to keep trying stuff. And then eventually you'll find it. And I can say that because podcasting for me is definitely something I want to keep doing. But I'm 41 years of age. I've been marketing online for 10 years and it's still taken me that long to find this medium that I actually am quite passionate about. And I'm willing to do the level of suck that's involved because hat off to full-time content creators. It is a lot of work. But if the thing you're creating content about is something that you're truly passionate about, you'll make it work. If you truly believe that the world needs what you've got to say or what you're doing, Dadvocate episode 19, perfect example of that. Go check her out. They're all great people. I'm super blessed to have found these people in my life. So yeah, go check out some episodes. But with that, I will stop talking. It's been long enough of me and my voice. Again, if you fancy being generous because it's Christmas and leaving me a review on Apple, that'd be amazing. Thank you. But for now, I will leave you with episodes 1 through 20 with all these amazing humans. If you are a human who's been on this podcast, thank you so much. I've enjoyed every single episode so much. It's been great to go through and edit this episode and see you all again and realise just what great conversations they were. Hopefully, if you're not someone who's been on and you're listening, you get some value out of something. And with that, have a very Merry Christmas. All the best for an amazing 2024. And I will see you at some point in the new year with more podcasts. Take care. Episode 1, Bitcoin, Money for Millennials with Natalie Brunell.
Look, at the end of the day, I'm a huge proponent of freedom, right? So if you have the freedom. You want to work, you want to climb the ranks. That's great. But a lot of people are choosing that path or extending it because they can't afford to live on one income. To me, a life of quality and happiness is one where you are surrounded with people who love you and who you love, a community that you're helping to support and provide service and love to, that gives back to you, right? And
do work harder, but it's not for something you don't believe in. You just have a new energy when you do
yes.
that.
No, I'm a big believer in betting on yourself, and also it doesn't feel like work. Bitcoin makes me feel so much more fulfilled because I feel like now I'm part of something that's actually going to improve the world and make it a better place. And for me, I just think that we are at our happiest when we're providing service to others, when we're doing something to help other people. And then when I went off to college, 0809 happened, and my parents were among the families that lost our homes and went under in the financial crisis. And at that time, I really didn't understand how our financial system worked. I didn't understand what happened. I knew my parents were good, hardworking people who played by the rules, and suddenly they were filing for bankruptcy. And so I entered into my career as a journalist with two seeds planted. One, this idea that we don't want too much control. We don't want communism. But also, how did, in a country like the US, which is supposed to represent freedom and opportunity, how did the financial crisis happen? What the heck happened? Why are 10 million people out of their homes, and Wall Street continues to, function and get bailouts, and people are even getting bonuses during that time? And so it really changed where advertising money went. So as I was working, I kind of started to feel not only the frustration of what I was reporting on, because I would, on a micro level, I would be reporting on some things like the cost of education going up and local elections and people, blaming one another, kind of retreating into these silos of us versus them, corruption in elections. I covered a lot of corruption and did a lot of investigative work on that. And no, shocking.
Really?
And so I sort of saw at the core, the fabric of our country, like being pulled apart, and the middle class declining and wealth disparity growing. And it wasn't until Bitcoin that I understood why it was happening. And so it's really interesting how information has changed, how we consume it, how we have to determine what is fact from fiction. And so for me, it was actually really liberating when I got to go off on my own, because I feel like I can speak my truth, which is just the truth in the sense where we have a problem with our system. Here's why. This is based on history. This is based on how our financial system and banking works. And here is a solution. Let's dig into it. Let's ask the right questions. Let's see, is Bitcoin the thing that can provide us with hope and abundance and prosperity? And so for me, my conclusion is yes, but I'm always still picking at it. I'm always still questioning it. But it's been really liberating going off on my own, because I don't feel like I have to abide by the narrative that may or may not agree with the government.
Wow. Episode 2, Fertility, Miscarriage and Womb Healing with Vicky Renz. Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom in particular was saying that from all the reading he's done, that 80%, I don't know if you know this, 80% of women over 30 who are childless did not get there by choice. Average. So 70% of the world's population live in countries where we are between 1 and 20%, or 10 and 20%, I think, below the average of people having 2 children each. That is going to result, if we're not careful, if we don't start having more babies, in population collapse. But it is mind-blowing to me how much of this stuff we just don't know, but yet we're being told the world is ending, the climate is in jeopardy because of not having enough children, we're having too many children. But it's like, yeah, but if we die out, why are you worried about the planet being affected? Mother Nature will sort itself out. Like, we're worried about the state of the environment for humans to live in, but humans won't be here if we carry on like this. So it's just getting people to start critical thinking about everything. The hope and the polar opposite of this very morbid conversation is you. And so I hope that motivates you, but you are the hope, and the work you do, to me, is the hope.
Scientists have proven that we hold on to something called cellular memory in our bodies. So every single cell in our bodies is affected by the type of energy we have inside of us, so positive or negative energy. And it affects all of our organs inside of our bodies. And when the cells inside of our womb are holding on to like trauma, pain, emotions, lots of heavy stuff, from past relationships. I could go on about that. There's so much that we do hold on to, yeah? And the womb healing goes in and connects you with that cellular memory so that you can understand what you're holding on to and start releasing and healing it. So you create that lightness, you create that revived positive flow within your body. The buildup of stress, over time, it can release cortisol. So cortisol is the stress hormone, and cortisol can stop the messages functioning properly between our brain and our womb, our reproductive system. Yeah. When things aren't working right inside of your womb, you really feel like something's not right with you as a woman, and you're constantly questioning yourself. You've got it on your mind 24/7. So helping these women to get their self-esteem and confidence back, and just seeing their lives change as they connect with their core, like their feminine flow, and find their lease of life again. I mean, they really become alive again. Like, they go out, they socialize, they do things they absolutely love, like playing a musical instrument, going out and singing and dancing. It's just such a joy to be part of. Yeah.
Episode 3. Crypto Investing and Influencers with Ash Davidson, aka Market Mobster.
Realistic, objective and outspoken. We love that. YouTube and Twitter influencer. And
just by me talking about it on my Facebook page, literally my Facebook profile, people were interested, and I made like a group. It blew up.
I bet it did.
I remember it just growing by like 500 members per day for like a couple of weeks. I was like, what's happening? And I was just doing like free courses on Udemy just to try and help people how to buy Bitcoin. So yeah, it just took off, and I'm quite an advocate of I didn't really want the audience, but I've got it. Just through circumstance, because it happened so quickly. I wasn't ready for it.
Right.
Yeah, put it that way. It has been all organic and scary at the same time, because you're not born knowing how to deal with followers, and we don't like this. You just want to hide away a little bit, because it's just the nature of the beast. I'm afraid I am a lot more confident in front of the screen, but it's also what you see through years of experience. I started first doing tutorial videos in 2017. But before that, I had my football website where I'd do stuff on screen, and even before then, I'd do little recordings of stuff. And back then, you just got better. And even through online gaming, random example, but talking and playing on a microphone sort of situation, you get confident with a screen. Where some people, and I say this a lot, you got keyboard warriors, and you got the people that the 2% who want to pick up the microphone and actually articulate what they're thinking.
Do something
Those
useful.
Are the people you want to be. You want to be that person, because you will get more confident, and also you learn more, in my opinion anyways. You definitely learn more if you'd speaking it out. I hate being known as an influencer, but I think I'm different. At the end of the day, I don't need the money that Bitcoin is. I've always say that Bitcoin's king. It's the best thing ever. The white paper is amazing. Then you've got the innovation. So I'd say that's 2% of the market, and then 98% of the market is literally scam. I'm not even joking. It's my portfolio even today is still Bitcoin is my number one. I held majority of my Bitcoin throughout the bear cycle because I knew it was okay. I was like, yeah, cool.
Well, we're already on digital money. What would you say to someone who isn't aware of what a CBDC is?
Learn quickly what it is and understand it's not good for anything. It is the worst possible thing that could happen to the financial system. I would rather have 20 years of the existing traditional market system than have 1 year of that. The only people that get rich in crypto at the minute is founders and the influencers in the know, because they know what's happening, and then the poor little investors just getting destroyed. And this is why I focus on big cap coins. I literally print screen my phone and go, oh, look at this. Oh, this exchange has just offered me this much money. I literally do. I put it in there so people are aware of what is happening. And I tweeted about it saying, if you've got more than 10,000 followers and you are pushing this to your audience, you need to have a little word with yourself, because someone will get wrecked. You should be making money as an investor first and not through your followers. Realistically, you've got to walk the walk. And big market crash, COVID crash, into the next bull cycle. And that was hard. That was really hard. I mean, there was influencers that were selling toothpaste on Amazon stores literally like 6 months before the entire bull cycle kicked off again. And now the big crypto influencers, then when the market goes red and ugly,
They disappear.
they vanish.
Episode 4, Metaphysics and Energetic Intelligence with Emma Zia.
Is like, you can now belong in this subculture if you don't belong in your current environment.
Yes.
And so sometimes people can jump onto these things, and I'm not discrediting this, but sometimes people can jump onto certain like trends, as it were, or like subcultures as a way to like actually find their belonging, because they don't belong in their current environment or in their family home or in school, which we've all experienced. Like when I shared my story at the beginning, that was a big part of me, is I felt like I didn't belong, and it was so intense that it caused a lot of emotional pain. Now at that time, we didn't have all these subcultures to kind of explore with. So now with all these subcultures and with the internet and social media and like certain trends and stuff going on, there is so much diversity for people to explore that I think it becomes very easy to explore those places without questioning yourself first. Is to put someone in a state of confusion and then to offer them certainty. Is how is certain narratives and things being pushed to confuse children who haven't fully developed their concept of self, to therefore jump on something that is more certain. Does that make sense? Like,
It absolutely
there's certain
does, because
things-
that's happening on lots of things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so that's what the most important thing I would say for any parent that's listening or anyone out there is to focus on instilling self-esteem and emotional intelligence in your children. Yeah. We are going to see people that are already lost get even more lost in this extension of this virtual reality, right? It's like this reality inception. If you allow AI to override emotional intelligence and energetic intelligence, people are going to really like be in a shitstorm. It's also like the concerning piece about it is like creativity is one of the like the pillars of what makes us human as creative beings, creating our reality. And what I'm seeing is that AI is really taking over the creative space and almost giving us a jail out of free card in terms of transition into transhumanism, which transhumanism is essentially the hybrid of man and machine, is to just be very aware of how the use of machine and technologies might be taking away from what actually makes us incredible as human beings. Because if that gets taken away from us, we can be controlled very easily. We can be manipulated very easily. If we lose that sense of true, authentic, creative, like our creative nature, we are at risk of really losing a lot. Money is like energy, money is a tool, money is a frequency, and money is also the physical manifestation of the exchange of experience. It's like money literally allows you to express yourself. That's why like in society, like there are certain things that we see as valuable, you know, like having a lot of money, fame, recognition, status, title, big home, things like that. And it's just because that's the way our society has structured what we perceive to be a value. But what you've really got to like look into is, what does money mean for me? And like, how can I tune into that frequency before it becomes manifest? And seeing it more as the feeling state that it puts you in, because the feeling state it will put you in is probably a feeling state of freedom, and that freedom gives rise and allows you to be your full expression in this lifetime.
Episode 5, Less Corporate, More Human, with communication expert Brian Parsley.
The reality is, and I work with a lot of CEOs of big companies, and there's been times where I've received phone calls from someone who I would look up to as, wow, I could never be that successful in business. And they're so uncertain with where they are in life and what they're doing, and they have no one to talk to. They're even more isolated because they have to put on this front. We have to put on this mask of what society says we should be, and we shouldn't be. And it's hard. Maybe that's a wake up call for us to say that, you know, I'm really, you know, the last 2 years, I don't know necessarily if it's changed me, but it certainly has helped me refocus on what I want to be true in my life.
Yeah.
And that's serving other people. And I think if we change our if we change our thoughts, we change our narrative. And when you change your narrative, you're going to change your results in your life. And, but that's a choice. And you could choose to stay stuck, or you can choose to push through. But the skill you can't teach is how to be you, how to be authentic, how to care about other people first. And our tagline is less corporate, more human, because it's called the aggregation of marginal gains. Okay. So to give you the most simple analogy that you just said, I don't have to get up at 4 a.m. If I get up 10 minutes early and all I did was read a book, that gives me 5 hours of that mastery every month. 10 minutes a day is 5 hours in an entire month. Now, what's the aggregation of marginal loss? The 1 hour a day I spend on TikTok times 30.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
There's apps now that will give you that in years of your life. I downloaded one the other day.
I don't know if I want to see that, but
Episode 6, Entrepreneurship, Bitcoin and the Broken System with Alex Fetsky.
A football team, for example, or a basketball team. The artist is the player, the entrepreneur is the owner of the team, and the manager leader is the coach. Like you need all three. And all three can be business owners. But the idea, so what you should do is you should figure out what archetype you are first, and then lean into that. So I'm less artist. Like I've got some artist obviously because I can write, so I seem to have a talent around that. Yeah. But and everyone's got a mixture of all three, right? So it's not about like, oh yeah, you're one, right? Yeah. Everyone's got a mixture. But the thing is, like, where's your center of gravity? If you put your time into your center of gravity, I think that's where you'll find success. So like I'm primarily entrepreneurial, bit of artist, and the least manager leader. Although I'm strong in that too, it's not where I like to spend my time. I like to spend my time in the entrepreneurial side of things, like figuring out, solving a problem, and then taking a bucket load of risk to figure it out. And I think, to sort of tie this back to the entrepreneurial discussion, it's, I think what's more important is that people like do work on things that they actually give a shit about. So, and this doesn't mean that they need to essentially be an entrepreneur, but they can learn a lot from the entrepreneurial mode of being, which is entrepreneurs solve problems. So even if you are not the owner of the business, you can take an entrepreneurial approach to what you're doing in a business if you give a shit. Like, so, you could be a designer who and you love design. Go find a company that's building something cool that you would love to design and solve the problems in design. Or you're an engineer. Go and work with a company that is building something cool and code up something cool. Now, there's a myriad of these things, and I think that's probably the more important piece. You touch on something really important there. It's something I've talked about before. It's like, if you want to live a good life, here's your ingredients, basically. Step 1, go do something useful with your life that makes you happy, and even if it's something. Sorry, let me backtrack. Go do something useful in life that gives it meaning. Fuck the happiness. Happiness is a byproduct of meaning, right? So do something that gives you some meaning. You'll get happiness, you'll get frustration, you'll get sadness, you'll get anger, you'll get excitement, you'll get all the emotions. That's the whole point, right? So it's like, go do something useful and meaningful, and then make some damn money out of it and put the money into Bitcoin, and that's it. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That way you build a savings, you have optionality, because the whole point of savings, and even the whole point of investing, is to have greater future optionality.
Episode 7, Fatherhood, Investing and Energy Markets with Daz B.
it's a fundamental way of communicating value between each other. And when somebody is pressing on that string, when somebody's inputting and manipulating that for whatever reason, economic stimulus or monetary policy or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, they're manipulating how we as humans interact. And that is, it's got profound effects on everything from society to wokeness to, to the bond between parents and children and war. Exactly. There are there's so many things downstream of money that it's mind blowing, and that's what I really we alluded to this earlier in the convo. Like, Bitcoin is hope, and it really it's when you start to understand the downstream effects of the that goes on with money, it is diabolical. It is completely it just erodes it erodes the human condition in order to be able to to deal with that.
Keep everyone on.
If wins 30%.
Yeah.
Keep everyone on without rolling blackouts. So the question then lies, what about when the conditions are healthy? So there's your maximum demand. So we have to build our grid at that level. So what happens when everything's nice and healthy, the wind's blowing, the sun's shining, and we've got all that excess capacity? Who's paying for that excess capacity to build out those grids and capitalize those infrastructure at such a massive scale? The answer is the energy or taxpayers, because we're going to offset all those costs. The government, exactly.
The government pay for it.
The government.
Who pays them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So one really big use case is for Bitcoin miners to come in and there's our maximum demand, here's our capacity, and we can soak up all of that excess capacity when sun's shining and winds are blowing really, really well. Yeah. And then, we can monetize and that excess that excess energy. Technology is inherently deflationary, and we need a deflationary currency. So we should be, as humans, by this stage, we should be working less, and we should be able to store our wealth in a very easy to understand asset that will increase in purchasing power over time to navigate that deflationary world where you make nice, sound economic valuations around what you choose to spend your money on. And that will enable human flourishing through enabling us to be able to do whatever the fuck we want to do. If your passion is art, you should be able to earn a living from art. People will find value in your art and they'll pay you for art. Right now, you can't make money in art unless you're the absolute elite end of that scale. Same with gigging. I'd love to be able to earn a living from gigging, but like I was saying, in order for me to do that, I would have to be doing it 7 days a week. If we embrace a deflationary world, embrace a deflationary currency, ultimately our world will be a beautiful, beautiful place.
Episode 8, Anxiety for Men, with Dr. Baz Trail.
Going into medicine at 17, and just the great thing about medicine is you're guaranteed your wage. The community likes you and supports you, and everything is hunky-dory until it isn't. And that's quite a big shock for medics. That's why our rates of self-harm, depression, suicide are so high, is that we're in the rat race and we're rewarded for it, but when something goes wrong, none of us have the skills to think for ourselves and to think outside the box and find ways to be authentic and to get paid in different ways. So I think I would maybe communicate something like that, and to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because I think Robert Kiyosaki has a very interesting way of looking at money and how to escape the rat race. But we're having a kind of societal problem where in the UK, it's been shown that 8 million adults are taking an SSRI. So over 10% of the population are having to take medication for their anxiety and depression, which, I mean, it's fine if it works, but that's a huge number. That's a huge number, and it suggests almost a kind of a bigger problem with society.
Yeah, just a bit, yeah.
In family practice, you see the trend. So you see the same people coming over and over again. So that was the reason I kind of wrote the book, because I wanted to it was almost like if I could sit down with a man and talk for like 3 hours and just say, look, this is kind of how it is. We're watching it slowly move. And in Bitcoin, they talk about the low time preference. The Bitcoin Standard and Saifedean Amos talks about just you don't just react to what's happening in the here and now. You have to have a lower time preference where you have to be prepared for things to play out at certain time points. And that's something that I took because, I was so angry that I was being kind of blocked out of medicine for a while. And actually just saying, well, I'm going to keep her kind of lower time preference here. I think I'm going to be proven correct in time. So here we are in 2023. There's a lot more doctors, there's a lot more medics approaching me saying, okay, tell me a bit more about your opinion on COVID, or your opinion on lockdown. It tends to be people are kind of going now, oh, something's not quite right. There's a problem with the money supply. They watch something on the news and they're connecting it.
Episode 9, Immigrating, Mainstream Media and Woke Workplaces with Dale Warburton.
I remembered hit the pavement, got guns over us, and I was like, Australia, let's make this happen. Come on. What I always stress with people when I talk to them is saying I'm the 1%. The 99% of people literally don't have the skills or the money to be able to immigrate.
You can be the top 1 to 5% of the wealth in your population, and all you want to do with that is leave your family behind.
I've got quite a different relationship with money in the sense where I look at money actually now as it just equals freedom and optionality. That's really the equation.
Do you think what happens there is intentionally, nefarious and malicious, or do you think it's just people doing the same thing they've always done because they're given a handover and a set of rules and a operating manual and a job description? Do you think it's a bit of both? Where do you sit with that?
If it's free and people aren't paying for news, then you're the product. So, much like Facebook or Instagram, that's just how it works. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing is if you've got it is just business, and literally they're just monetizing your eyeballs. I started losing a little bit of me. It sounds a little bit extreme, but my wife and I would go for walks every day with our dog, and I would just complain the whole time. And it's just I know that that's always a signal in my body that I'm not well. Yeah. And eventually I just was do you know what, this is it's actually with the support of my wife. She just said just pack it up, man, just walk away. It's not worth it. And what the people at the top do is they get us involved in petty squabbles around gender, left versus right issues, all these kind of little petty things. And meanwhile, they're playing the long game, and they are the wealth owners. And we're just the plebs fighting over scraps. And what Bitcoin does is it enables us to take something. We've basically front-running Wall Street. I mean, we've all been front-running BlackRock, the biggest, asset manager on earth. And this is the only opportunity humanity has to be able to acquire property that is unconfiscatable, that is deflationary, and it's the asymmetric opportunity of a lifetime. It's like investing in the internet in the mid-90s. And it's the opposite of a gamble.
Episode 10, Inheritance Planning and Wealth Preservation with Jake Woodhouse.
I inherited wealth in my 20s. My father, he sadly died, shout out to Dad, of a heart attack, January the 1st, 2009, completely out of the blue, age 48. And 18 months later, we sold our family home, which had been in the family for 3 generations. I was the eldest son, and I didn't see a future there for us, and for me particularly. So for the last, at least 10 years, I've been trying to figure out how do you protect wealth over time. And I came across Bitcoin. I first bought some in 2015, but really it was a tiny allocation. I ended up making much bigger moves 2021, 22, 23. And so now of investable assets, I'm about 90% Bitcoin, 10% cash. But the very obvious thing that I luckily learned was that saving and investing are not the same thing. And in order to save, because of inflationary monetary policy, you have to invest. You're forced to make investments.
Yeah.
What people are not told is that investing carries risk. And risk is actually incredibly difficult to quantify. And even extremely good full-time investors don't understand risk, like in some cases. So the average person, because of the financial system that exists today, is thrown into this ludicrous position where they can't save money over time. And so they have to become investors. And when they become investors, they're suddenly part-time investors alongside being doctors or being, teachers or being plumbers or
Parents,
being
yeah.
whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's ridiculously hard to protect your wealth over time. In the Bitcoin space, we talk about being your own bank. And it's like, what do you mean being your own bank? That's mad. Why would you do that? What happens if something goes wrong? All these reasons why you wouldn't do it. But ultimately, that's what I'm doing. I'm being my own bank. And it's very empowering. It made me think about being your own brand. And that really is like, that's what I did, right? Through being my own brand, and opportunities come out of that. And in some ways, absolutely everyone should have their own brand, like digital picture of themselves, digital conversation that they like having, digital network of friends. Like being in a geographic location is just the most bullshit excuse for not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, come on. There is a whole world of people out there online all day long. People want to talk about Bitcoin all day if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I love that concept, like being your own brand. And it's something that, anyone out there who's listening might want to run with. Go for it. I think it's very powerful.
Episode 11, How to Homeschool and Why, with Hippie Mom, aka Dr. Claire Honeycutt.
So it's not school exactly at home where it's like, this is your teacher, these are your books, good luck. It's like, okay, well, we have to learn math. We need to know some math. Math is important for almost anything you do, because you have to understand your finances, and you're in a Bitcoin. You have to understand how the world works. You have to understand how interest works, and all of this. You have to know some math. So it's like, okay, when we talk about that, we're like, you have to know some basics here, and we're planning to do some financial education with our kids too. So it's not going to just be like math. It's going to be like, okay, well, let's talk about how you make money and how money is made and what happens when you get a loan.
I love you so much.
Like all of these things, it's like, well, if you're going to go to college, well, what degree are you going to get? And do you really need college for that degree? And anyway, the point being that you have to know some math. And, but I don't care, exactly which math program you have. I want you to love math. I want you to come to it with joy. And that goes for all the subjects. Large public, one of the cheaper universities, it's still going to take $100,000 to get through 4 years of that degree. And I told people, I was like, even if you go and you sign up for some guy on the internet who's going to teach you something and it costs you $5,000, and even if it's terrible, you're still doing better. You're still then find another person that's the right person. Find another woman that's a better fit for you. It's just, there's so much content out there and so many ways to learn things. I actually think it would be good for the university system to lean down a bit. But that's not their goals, and nor should it be. They're a business. They pretend like they're nonprofits. They're not. They're making money. Their goal is to bring as many students in and keep as many students in and have them persist all the way through. That's their business model, and that's fine. But I think it would be good for them to have to work harder for the students and to and it not necessarily be everybody. So I was like, how do these kids turn out? I want to hear the adults that were unschooled. And she talked to this one woman, and she said that she always wanted to be a vet. She wanted to be a vet. That's all she wanted to be. And so her family moved to a big farm, and she got to follow around a big animal vet. And when she was 12, she was like, I don't want to be a vet. And they were like, wow, why? What happened? And she's like, I thought being a vet was taking care of cute, fun animals. It turns out you're just basically taking care of sick animals all the time. And I just don't want to be with sick animals all the time. And but I thought, because she got to try it, because she got to follow a vet, because she didn't have a typical school day, because she got to actually see what it was like.
What you don't want.
Right, exactly. And I said, in a normal world, she would have gone to high school, gone her veterinary degree, and she would be 26 or 28 with all of this college debt and, to get all these big degrees and be like, I don't really want to be a vet. I thought it was this, and it's this other thing entirely.
Episode 12, Winemaking and Building Community with Bitcoin, with Ben Justman.
So it took me a long time to figure out that it wasn't the wine that I was necessarily passionate about. I like the business, but what it gives me is I'm really passionate about the connection between people, the connection between place and food, and everything that wine brings as a connector. It's not necessarily the wine that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about all the things that wine brings along with it. But the fact is, we've gotten to a point where people don't even have a nest egg. People don't have $1,000 in a bank account at all, and that makes people live in this like fight or flight state where you can't help your friends. You always have to be looking out for yourself, and it destroys community. So coming back to wine, that's a huge part of wine is building community, and within that, I've just found the Bitcoin community as a group of people that has a lot of the same values as I do, as in values hard work, values building slowly for the long term, and values connection within people.
It's super important to support your community, I believe. You want to have people that are producing things that you want close to where you are in case there's ever a big issue. Like we saw supply chains get super wrecked in 2020. If there's ever an issue with major supply chains, you want to already have dialed who you're going to contact. And you want them to actually still be in business so that you can get whatever you need to get locally. And then layering Bitcoin on top of that is just money that can't be debased. So it helps out your local farmer more if you can help them build a Bitcoin stack. Getting good at using it and actually knowing how to do things in case something goes wrong and you need it in a pinch. It's good to know what you're doing. And two, if you can get people educated on it, they're more likely to be there in the long term as a successful business, providing the things you need, because Bitcoin is that life raft for people.
Episode 13, Sell Real Estate, Buy Bitcoin with British Hodl. So what do you think he was trying to say? Like, have a bit more respect for money?
Yeah, he's like, you need to have respect for money. You need to have respect for the opportunity you have at under 20 years old for doing what you're doing, while other people are doing what they're doing. You have money, therefore it means you have responsibility. And that's where, my life has gone. It's like, I understand I have a responsibility because I have resources. Like, most people don't think like that nowadays because the system incentivizes you to make money and then be irresponsible because irresponsibility is cool. Bitcoin finally makes responsibility cool. And that's what it's about.
Like most of my friends, I'm 40, millennials, most of my friends own their own home. And that's just conditioning. There's nothing. And if it's your life goal and you want a house in the same place or, a home for your children, everyone's got different goals. What I struggle with is that I don't think anyone's actually sat and consciously thought about that being the goal, or if it's just a goal they've inherited from their parents and they're thinking. The majority of their work to date, or the majority of their working life to date, has been spent primarily paying off a mortgage that isn't going away. Yes, okay, the capital gain might be there, but that's irrelevant if you're living in the house. It's not going to change the way you live your life if you've still got this mortgage to pay off.
What are you going to do? Sell a bedroom to live? Like you can't. That's the problem with property. You can't just sell a bedroom when you need some cash. You need to actually go refi the whole thing, or you need to go sell the whole thing and scale down. How many people do you know that have lived their entire life, raised good children, etc., and are now downsizing later on in their life?
Oh, everyone's
You should
parents.
be upsizing. You should be upsizing in the later part of your life because that's the celebration of your life. You should be upsizing, making space for more grandchildren, etc. That's what people should be doing, but they're not because the fiat system incentivizes people to shrivel up and die, and that's what Bitcoin fights against.
Wow. Totally.
I feel like life is a journey of turning arrogance into confidence, right? In a weird way. Like, that's what life is about. Like, life is about believing in yourself and what God put you on this earth for, and then spending your life proving that. That's what life is about.
Episode 14, My Father Murdered My Mother, with Ivan Makedonsky.
There isn't a single law that if you was made that was going to save my mother. But if all her assets were in Bitcoin, he was actually going to think about or do I want to kill her and all that? Bitcoin dies with her. So when back in 2022, when I connected that and I found out, like that was the potential savior for that situation. And the only game in town is, are you able to protect your assets, your energy, your everything? Yeah, if you have a gun, you can shoot your attacker, but it's again this bloodshed. And I don't think people want to go there. I lived through that. My father decided, I don't have my fair share. I'm going to kill for
He
it.
had an
And
incentive.
I don't think,
So what does that mean to you, to live a life of service?
I would definitely agree is the service of your fellow mankind. For me, it really is about what are you uniquely positioned to do and love it. Because even though I'm an employee right now, because it's this service, I do so many other things that are unrelated to my working for Breeze. I started a meetup in Bulgaria. I am engaged in communities. I orange field all my relatives, all that. I'm not getting paid for it, but it's again this service of this must happen.
Episode 15, Regenerative Farming and Bitcoin with Jake Wolke.
My opinion on the environment is if it is degrading, we have all the tools at our fingertips to fix it. We know exactly what to do. It's just that we want to do it. You know, all these little things that the environment movement wants to talk about, you know, they're not the hill to die on. For me, it's we need to get more animals grazing on land. We need to be shifting to nuclear power. Like there's a few, you know, really obvious things to me. We don't have to nitpick every little battle. You know, the pastures, they're my factories, they're my canvases, it's my unpaid workforce, all the microbes, all the dung beetles, all the worms. Like I go to the farm and I take my shoes and socks off and I walk around and sit in a corner for an hour just to feel the health of the place, just to hear it and smell it and understand, you know, how it's going. We're not attracting people who want to save money, but we are attracting people who don't want to buy food that's been subsidized by other things. So we don't subsidize the cost of production by treating animals cruelty and jamming them in a shed for efficiency's sake. And you know, we don't subsidize production by using chemicals. So there's all these externalized costs with cheap food. And what we're trying to do is sell people real food with no externalized costs. People that want to pay the tab up front and not pay for it later with their health, with the environment's health, with the conscience knowing that the animal's been abused. And so my point to that was we're able to market to so many people because some people only care about the welfare. Well, like that's really important to us. Some people only care about the nutrient density and what the food can do with them being chemical free, and that's really important to us. So we pick up people that want our food for lots of different reasons because our production model is really holistic. Like we've tried not to leave any piece of the puzzle unturned. I put on Mr. Middle Management persona. So I went from this, you know, authentic knockabout kid through school and the record shop, and then I turned up and I tried to be really buttoned up, slick because I needed to be the image of what a manager was, and it backfired and all the staff hated me. It took me quite a few years to figure that out.
Episode 16, Wrong Think, Writings on Dystopia with John Goddard. You are pathetic. Written by an utter fuckwit. I'll put money in your coffee account if you stop writing. Let's start with that. Let's start with the what people think part. So how did that feel, John Goddard, getting those comments?
I just thought that was so funny. For a long time, I didn't have the confidence to say out loud what I wanted to say, or I didn't have confidence to publish any writing or anything like that. Or it's not even that I didn't have the confidence. It's just that I didn't want to be faced with backlash, or I didn't want to... I thought that it was best to keep what I thought to myself. And it just got to a point, and this was only 6 months ago, and I was just like, fuck, I can't keep it in anymore. I just got to say it. I just got to put it all out. And now what I'm doing is writing all this stuff because it just has to, like, I can't keep it in because it actually is corrosive to your insides if you keep what you want to say in for too long.
So true.
Yeah. So a lot of people would tell you, you know, like this is how you game the algorithm, or this is how you get more people to see your stuff. And I just... it didn't, my experience wasn't in line with what they were saying. They said, this is the way that you get more followers. And I was like, well, no, I get more followers when I write something that's good. And so I just...
Should we just stop there? Let's just stop there for everyone. I will get more followers when I write something that's good.
I don't know, I guess what lens or what criteria do you use as something that's a piece of work or a piece of creative work that's good? So I wrote something last week, I think I published it last week, called Lost in the Labyrinth. And I think that's the best thing that I've written during this spate of releasing stuff online. But it didn't get that many likes and it didn't get shared around that much. Whereas I can write something in 5 or 10 minutes that just gets shared a whole lot. And the people that I see around me have lost confidence in their ability to have agency over their lives. You know, they're like, oh, inflation's out of control. Oh my God, another tax. It's really, really hard to feed my family. My business isn't doing well. And then they say, oh, well, what can you do about it? People have been almost beaten into a place where they know that they can't do anything to stop what the government is currently trying to do.
Resignation.
Yeah, resignation. That's exactly the word for it. And that stresses me out. Every day that you're not spending doing what you want to do, you kind of get further away from your goals. And if you leave that go for too long, you get anxiety, you get existential angst. And I personally found it very stressful.
Episode 17, Create a Life, Anti-Semitism and Bitcoin with Carrie C.
And I got a message from a friend of mine just as I was hitting 1,000 followers on Twitter. And she went, congrats on 1,000 followers. And I went, ha, 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 because she's got 18,000 followers, right? But she came back and she said, yeah, but the first 1,000 are the hardest. And you can do all the grunt work and the difficult stuff if you have a strong sense of purpose and passion and you believe in what you're doing and you care about it. You just pump people with enough propaganda and enough fear, and then you offer them a solution, and then you vilify a group of people, and then you offer them a solution like a quarantine, and they go, get those people in there so that I'm safe. And everything about that, I had such a guttural reaction to that. So physics works anyway. Bitcoin works anyway. It's just Bitcoin doesn't care what you think. The advice would be, actually, you are different. You are wired differently. That's not an illusion. That's not a matter of, oh, you just feel that way, but actually you're the same as everyone else. I mean, we're all unique, but there is something slightly different in my brain around that needs to be self-employed, that feels very strongly, always has felt very strongly about the values of freedom and truth. They have always been my top two. And I said that explicitly well before COVID and lockdowns. So that's always been true for me. And that actually does make me quite different in some ways to people around me. And if I'm not feeling like I don't fit in, my advice would be play to that strength and do find your people. There will be people in different corners.
Episode 18, Make Money Online with Stuart Ross.
It's never been as possible as it is today for us to monetize the things that are either important to us, matter to us, we're passionate about. That it could be a hobby or an interest. It could be an expertise that you know the world needs. The opportunity to earn a living online, doing something that you love and that you're passionate about and that is meaningful, that you would do anyway, whether you were being paid or not. And then having the opportunity to generate that cash flow and very easily put it into an asset class like Bitcoin derives a huge amount of hope. I mean, it's what I do. It feels great. It's very difficult not to sort of think, like this is a once in a lifetime.
I need more.
Yeah. And the easiest way to do that is to earn shit tons of money if that's something that's a motivator for you. It's even more exciting when you're generating regular, controlled, sustainable cash flow by doing something that's adding value to the world, that is business focused, that isn't trading or isn't something that's outside of your control because of the markets. and being able to just accumulate. Like when you've got a community of dreamers and doers who believe dreams are worth chasing and they're doing it for that reason, that is a different mentality than I'm being forced to learn something new and coming at it from a place of fear and scarcity. So that sort of development phase and trying things out can only work by eradicating the old paradigm of thinking of we've got to put a label on ourselves. I mean, we're young kids, we're in school, we're never asked to reflect on who we want to be, how we want to be as a person. It's what will you be? What's that label, that title?
What will you do?
Yeah, exactly. And, and it's a picking a career path before we even know who we are in most instances. It's very subjective is where I would start. And it's like you said, the difference between what people's perspective is around rich and wealth can be very individual. The way that I would describe it is that we all have our certain life areas that are important to us. The way that we sort of get people to think about it in our community is health, wealth, inner self, and our social life. If you were to sort of rate each of those areas out of 10, I have the desire for 4 7s, 4 8s. I'm not like obsessed around financial gain or wealth. For me is around balance.
Episode 19, shared parenting and content creation with the Dadvocate.
Well, it's funny because it really took a long time before I really saw any money, because I blew up on TikTok in a really crazy way. I think I hit 100K in like a month. And I was so like blown away by all that. And I had all these followers, this quote unquote fame. And with that came accusations of like grifting. So I'm like working a full-time job in STEM still while creating content. And at the time, I think the most I had made in like a month for my first year was like $300. So often what we end up having are these pro-women spaces led by women that hate men, or these pro-men spaces led by men that hate women. And so I think that when people end up finding a channel where one sex gives a shit about the opposite sex without hating their own sex, it feels good. It feels good. They're like, finally. But I guess in my head, I always thought if 2 people have a child together and then they split up, then they just equally see that child. And it just is split fairly and in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
How little I knew.
A lot of people say, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what I'm passionate about. And I'm like, well, if you don't know what you're passionate about, talk about what pisses you off, which sounds like what you started with.
That's good advice. That's actually good advice. Yeah, I am passionate about what pisses me off, so that's for sure. Because of this, I'm given the opportunity to do it full time. And what I really love about this is now I can travel to these different Capitol buildings across different states, and I can actually meet these senators, meet these legislators, and use the unique voice that I have that has the ability to articulate these issues in, as you would say, reasonable ways, to where I think people will actually listen to me. And so I really, in that regard, I don't feel bad for making this my full-time job, because I'm doing what I always wanted to do. I didn't just want to rant into a phone. I wanted to change the laws.
Episode 20, Simple Investing for Building Wealth with Tess Waresmith.
Just because you're not, dealing with negative people or mean people or whatever it is, or toxic people, doesn't mean that the situation itself is not toxic for you. And those are so different things, right? And so I think people will say, oh, this is a great company, but if you've, for example, outgrown the company or learned all you can, or there's not a seat that's a good spot for you, but you're so ingrained in the culture that you don't leave. And I know people like this in good companies that are just kind of stuck there. That's a toxic situation for you. Even if it's not necessarily a toxic culture holistically, like that, it's just like any relationship, right? Like 2 good people can be in a toxic relationship, right? So
That's a can of worms we won't open right now.
Learning how to manage your money, which is a tool, a resource to give you freedom, flexibility, options, impact, influence, all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the most empowering things you can do. Like, talk about self-care. Like, learning how to manage your money, which is your tool and your ticket to designing a life you love, that is worth so much more than just the information itself. And so since then, I have people message me and say, hey, I just want you to know that my ex left on short notice and it sucked, but I wasn't stressed about my money, and I've paid off all my credit card debt, and now I've invested like $100,000, and I'm just like so grateful to know that like I can do this on my own. Like, that's some powerful shit. From the time I decided that I wanted true financial flexibility to walk away from my job, and the time I became a millionaire was 10 years. That's not that long. So, you know, I like the idea of a few intentional years that can really change everything. Wealth to me really means just having control over my time and spending time with people I care about. I thought I was going to be traveling all over the world, right? Like, you and I both traveled a lot. We both worked on cruise ships. And for a long time, I felt like I should be traveling because that's what people that are successful creators do. They're like cool and they travel. And like, that is some kind of
I kept my laptop
metric
on the
of
beach.
success. Yeah, like I have my laptop. I'm like poolside with my laptop. And now that I'm here, I don't really want to do any of that. Like, I like traveling, sure. But like, what I really want to do is nap. I want to think. I actually did something really right by accident when I started my business. And so if you are a content creator and you're trying to think of how to like create an offer or monetize it, this will be helpful. So
I left you on a bit of a cliffhanger. I know, I'm sorry. If you are still here listening to just over an hour of this wrap-up episode for 2023, thank you so much. I would love any thoughts, feedback. Obviously, the 5-star review on Apple or Spotify would be amazing. But anything else, tag me on any posts or thoughts or feedback. Amy Taylor Says on Twitter or Instagram, or drop me an email at amy@bugetpaid.com. I answer all my emails personally. I might not answer them till 2024 at this point, but you know, send it through. Love hearing from people if you've managed to make it to the end of an episode. And yes, if that was a cliffhanger with what Tess was about to tell you, just go back and check out episode 20. She's an old friend of mine from working on cruise ships, and she's taken her experience of investing very simply in the stock market to make herself a millionaire by the age of 35, in short. So she's well worth listening to, especially if you are in the States. Everything she teaches is absolutely relevant to other people as well, but particularly if you are a female in the United States, that is her jam, getting you to get organised with your money and look forward to some kind of retirement if that's your goal. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you so much for listening if you're still here once again. If you're watching on YouTube, apologies. This was a very let's just grab the bits I want and chop them up and put them together. I'm definitely guilty of perfectionism along the way with various projects. So I wasn't going to do that with this one. So I hope it's been enjoyable. I hope it's a good snapshot. If this is your first time listening to anything I've done, thank you again. All the best for a very Merry Christmas and a very happy 2024. Take care.